All right, and welcome back to Broll Redux. How's it going, David?
Hey, good morning, David. How are you?
Morning. A little bright.
Um,
Screen's reflecting over here.
it's kind of bright on my side today, right? Trying to get away from the shadow.
All right, we got a different episode today. We're going to be talking about a subject that it's got Hollywood worried, that's for sure. And I'm sure a lot of people in Hollywood hate it.
Right. I can tell you one person that hates it.
Who?
Huh?
Who?
What? Kevin.
No, Kevin's
I'll
gonna
tell
be
you that.
fine. Kevin's gonna be fine. Kevin's smart. He's gonna figure it out. What we're talking about is AI. AI is, it's coming. It's coming to change the way we write stories, the way we do visual effects, the way we do sound, the way we do a lot of things in the film industry. Some things are farther along than others, but at some point, everybody is going to be hit by this. And I'll start off with, I want to get this out of the way because there's pretty much one group that I kind of feel bad for because their jobs will be completely changed, if not just absolutely, deleted. And that's going to be voice actors. With AI, it's going to be able to replicate anyone's voice, mix match more, voices together and make new voices that what voice actors are pretty much going to be a thing of the past. And we know some voice actors, so I mean, there's a lot of actors who make a good sized living, just doing that.
Well, Raphael. That's what
Yeah.
Raphael does.
Yeah.
Have you seen him?
And there's some bigger names, like, someone like, Clancy Brown, who's, really good actor, but he gets typecast so much. And then to make ends meet, he was doing voice acting after voice acting. He was making a very, very, very good living off that.
Mhm.
But, AI is going to hit that side of the industry really hard. And I do feel bad for voice actors on that
Right.
state.
Well, isn't that one of the things they had in the for the strike, making sure that they are compensated for their
I mean, voice actors are, I mean, even in the SAG, I guarantee they don't see voice actors as
the
one
Bible?
of them. They're that smaller clique. It's like, man, we're more worried about the higher paid actors, the people that put their face on the screen and stuff like that. I guarantee it's like that. I'm sure they have SAG representation, but they're on the lower totem pole.
Yeah.
No one cares about them. They care about the people that are already making good money, right?
It's
That's
all
the
about
thing
the
with the
money.
unions, right? The unions nowadays are basically taking care of like the top 10%. And everyone else is just there's going to be less work for those people. Um, so yeah, that out of the way, I do feel bad for voice actors, because they're going to get hit hard. But everybody else, the visual effects people, it this is no different than when we went from shooting on film to shooting digitally.
Hmm.
How many jobs and how many people that used to work on film strips got replaced by computers?
Hmm.
I mean, whole machines, whole companies, where is Kodak nowadays?
All right.
you know, it's like this happens, and you got to adapt, you know. Um, we talk about writers. It's like, well, you need to start using AI as a tool.
Hmm.
You use AI all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it is it just putting in one line and say, "Hey, make me this," and then it spits the thing out for you?
Well, it does because I do A and B testing. Since you shared with me your prompt, I've really concentrated on it building the perfect prompt. But like we've talked to Kevin, our screenwriting friend in Hollywood, I showed him a treatment that was really much from one line. He read it. He goes, "We're blanked." because it was exactly what he would have written. So, I mean, again, yeah, you use it as a tool to get you I use it for brainstorming, get ideas. Like I'll get a crazy idea in my head. I wake up in the middle of the night and pops up. It gets my brain going. To rely on it for putting the meat on the bones of your spine, I don't think it's going to work because it doesn't have the emotion. You know, One thing that I was explaining to a coworker at work is it's not really that smart. It's looking for the right word to put. It's and the story go. That's all it is. It's just putting the right words in order what it thinks is best. But I don't think it's going to replace screenwriting. Our friend Kevin. But it's going to help them maybe be better. But the studios are going to look at it and say, yeah, we can replace. But then they're going to put out crappy movies, and then the chips are going to fall where they may.
Well,
If
see,
you
the
don't have
thing
that,
is the AI is not going to be able to write the entire thing yourself. Like I said, it
right?
doesn't have that human speech
It doesn't know
and
what it's like to
human
move a
like
parent
touch
child,
to it.
right? Right. The human part of it. It's going to help you get started. But Hollywood is going to. Well, I'm speaking as a layman. They don't. If they don't care, they're just going to crank it out and let the chips fall where they may. But
I mean,
then
even
people are
that
not going to think
we're gonna be able. I mean, first of all, look at some of the stuff that's been written nowadays. It sounds like it could be written by AI, but
right,
that's just the way people are writing stuff nowadays. A lot of people aren't good at their job, and they have jobs and they write. And this is why
right,
AI is going to slowly, not slowly, but quickly, come in. But as a writer, on the writer side, this AI is not going to be able to completely write it. Like you said, it's going to be used as a tool. A writer is going to come in there, is going to have a prompt for or a treatment, or
hmm
it's going to ask it for like, hey, give me some, various ideas for a movie, and it's going to spit
hmm
out, a couple sentences for X amount of ideas, and this writer is going to go, I like that one, let me write a 3-page treatment or something,
hmm
or let me write something more detailed on that.
right,
And then it's going to tell that AI, it's like, okay, give me, the 3-act structure of this in a story. Give me ideas of what could happen and, right here, with this one paragraph.
right,
Then it's going to take the information it spits out there. It's going to, the writer is going to continue to add on.
right.
So
What I've been
this is how the writers and the other people in these other facets of the business are going to have to act. They're going to have to use this AI as a tool. Stop being afraid of it. It's going to take your job. If you don't start using it, it will take your job,
right.
or someone else will.
I've been pitting Microsoft Copilot to other. I'll come up with I wrote a log line. It was way too long, and I put it in, and it helped me. It really did. It really knocked it down to the 21 to the number of words that for a Hollywood log line, and it really helped. I mean, it still conveyed the same thought. Then I took it to the other side and it wrote a treatment, and it was pretty amazing what it did. And I'm not a screenwriter, but I just know enough to be dangerous. But it was interesting to see the evolution of where I started to where I came up with, and it was pretty amazing. Just for a short story that was, I listened to, I may have talked about it before, but I heard a story about a slave who mailed himself out of slavery years ago. True story. And then my mind started working, and I came up with the lost letter office or the dead letter office. And it came up with a treatment that's pretty good that I've been bouncing back and forth between AIs and refining it. And it's getting pretty good. Uh, but it's all about the prompt and telling it what you want. But it knows a lot, but it doesn't know everything. It
Right.
just knows industry standards. So that's what it's basing. But when you challenge it, it really got pretty good.
Yeah, someone's actually going to have to work with that AI.
Right,
It's
right,
going to have to communicate with that AI. It's going to have to say, okay, instead of this, let's do this,
right,
and then fix that, fix the story with that, and update
right,
it, and that's how these writers are going to have to work nowadays, and this is going to be no different than hey, yeah, in TV, you shouldn't need as many writers in that room anymore. One of them should literally be an AI.
Right.
And all these writers should bounce everything off this AI, right?
Right.
Um, there and the other facets, CGI. I mean, how bad is CGI nowadays? We've talked about this. You know, AI, they're not there yet. Writing is going to be probably like the first one they get to, where it's like, hey, writers start using AI as a tool right
Right.
now. Your projects are gonna be better. You're
Hmm.
gonna spend less time coming up and developing an idea if you use AI. CGI, it's still got some time to do most things, but things that used to be done like backgrounds, that used to be done by like matte painters, right?
Hmm.
All that stuff can be done with CGI.
Right.
Anything that has to do with a subject, like a person in AI, that an AI can make that person, but the AI doesn't quite know like true framing yet. If you look at a lot of like CGI that's made uh, by AI, you can tell because the subject is like straight up in the middle of the frame.
Right.
It's like I think there's a project on Amazon that I read about right now. I think it's called The House of David. It's like a biblical story or something like that.
Hmm.
And they used like 60 or 80% of their CGI is from AI. And when they were showing a couple of the clips, like yeah, you can tell because like the person was like right in the middle. They used all their assets. The
Right.
actors did that. That motion, and then they used AI to enhance that scene, right?
That looks AI-ish.
And AI tends to like, and this is like an option that they were probably doing with you know the the AI and how they input in prompts. But it's like a lot of the AI art seems to be like, that old, maybe like 10, 20 years ago when HDR was kind of popular,
Hmm.
in photos, that high dynamic
Right.
range. So everything is like, you know, almost kind of like that, hyper realism kind of look.
Right.
And once they figure out stop doing it that way and start doing it more blendy, but that might have been a stylistic thing. Like I said, it was like a biblical epic, so they might have went for this kind of like unrealism kind of look to it because it's kind of like unnatural to our eyes because
Right. Right.
something that we don't see every day. But scenes like you look at Lord of the Rings or big massive, war scene or something like that would require, all these extras and stuff like that and all these like, fancy environments, AI is going to be able to do that, no problem. And CGI artists, like I said, they haven't been helping themselves for the last several years with fighting amongst each other and underbidding each other, then turning out weak products and horrible looking CGI, and they complain it's like, oh, we haven't had the time, we didn't have time to do it. Like the director came in here and wanted to change things up, or the studio came in and wanted to change things up, and we had to scrap this and restart over. It's like, well,
This is
AI is going to be able to do that a lot
right.
cheaper,
Right.
a lot
Yeah.
quicker.
Right.
So once again, like if you're a CGI artist, it's like start learning AI.
Yeah.
Start, especially if you're a CGI, studio house. It's like start implementing it, start using AI as a tool.
And yeah, so you can fine tune your output. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can say, hey, yeah, now we can actually get something done in time. Right now you might be able to tell that it came from AI, but like I said, it's still going to be better than what they're going to output with the time that they have and we're given, and eventually, like I said, it might take over where it's like, it's overused and there's not going to be as many humans working on the projects, but there's always going to be a human aspect to it. someone is gonna have to be working with this AI to fine tune things, to manipulate things that are going in, because you can't just use AI completely to come up with something new.
Mhm.
You have to have assets to feed this AI.
Yeah.
So there is always going to be this human, component to what they're doing, unless they completely change like the copyright laws and stuff like that, right?
Well, that's the thing. One thing, I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay, this AI is going to generate ideas, but where did that idea get generated from? Where did it, so that's a whole nother, you have to go back. Well, it learned it from somewhere. So is there a copyright on it? Did it go back past the 75 years or whatever for music and video? So it's a, it's a cauldron of, the unknown, it's scary, but it's exciting that it's happening, because it does make jobs easier, but it's the unknown of the legalities of everything, because it doesn't know, so it learned it somewhere. Who did it learn it from, or what did it learn it from?
Yeah, and that's why there's going to be an actual human that has to, like, be aware of it,
Right,
and
that
be
IP came
a
from a
monitor
human,
of it.
and then yeah, right. Uh, you know, like they maybe show a movie, and then they can't show this part because it they couldn't find the owner of it. It just have a blank screen because they can't prove where this idea came from. It'd be interesting, you know.
And that's why, like I said, when I was reading the story about that House of David, it's like, he was saying, because a lot of people are going to give them flack for doing this, because 80% of your CGI being done by, AI, it's going to make a lot of people mad, right? Because there's a lot of
Right.
people that didn't get paid for doing this. But, they said, it's like, hey, yeah, it's like they were using it as a tool. They had the actor, they were doing the scene, they did all the motions just like you would do for like a motion capture, right? They film that, they feed it in the AI adds wings, the
Yeah.
tunic, and the wind flapping like the feathers and stuff like that. It's like all that would took forever and cost a lot of money in CGI, when all they had to do was film their actor and used AI to enhance that scene with it.
Yeah.
And they were
It's
able to
cheesy.
do it so quickly too.
Mhm.
AI is going to be able to, pop it out there. They can almost like, I wouldn't say they can do it during dailies, but they can film something one day, and the next day they can probably start seeing what it's going to look like. Because you
Right.
probably got storyboards. They probably know what they want it to look like.
Right.
You can feed that AI storyboard, the video of the actor doing all the motions on the screen, and tell that AI to, like, okay, add the wings, add this, add the
Right.
background, and boom. Yeah, I mean, in a day or two, you're already seeing what that scene is going to look like. And then you could have a visual artist come in there and enhance the AI.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like it's not the all, end all to be all, especially right now. But if you want to survive in that business, start using it as a tool right
Right.
now.
Right.
Get
I agree.
started using it right now. Get started to understand it right now, because the industry is going to change, and it's going to
Yeah.
be as drastic as, when we stopped using film and went into digital.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, no more, how many places are there to, you know, render the film strips,
Not
process the
many,
film rolls, and
not many places now.
yeah.
I mean, a couple in LA, a couple on the East Coast, but and there's a place in Colorado they used to send my film. It's not, but you mentioned learning the AI. I've Audrey's 19 and Sean's 15, and we're just talking. Both of them were talking that they need to learn it. Don't need to be afraid of it. Not be. I never said that, but they need to, have a clear understanding where it's going because they're going to be entering a careers that's going to be part of their life, and they kind of look like deer caught in a headlight. And I've been kind of shepherding them along, to think of I use it as a tool for what I do. I mean, I wrote Maria our 20th anniversary poem with AI. She goes, "You didn't write this." Well, the thought was there, but it's you have to use it as a tool. And I mean, that's it. That's in my mindset. That's in your mindset. But people have to think that way, and it's hard to see when you see people. They just like, "What did you say?" Like, I work for United, and we have to do these badging where these ramp employees are coming up and sit in front of a computer, and they just stare at it. It's like, what are you doing? I'm 61 years old. You're 30. You don't know how to move a mouse. So, well, no, I don't. You need to. You need to. Well, that just is in my DNA. There's things that I'm not good at, but technology, it's interested me, so I stay on top of it.
Right.
And now more than ever, you have to, no matter what industry you do, you have to be aware of what's out there to help you be a better person and a better employee. Those are just things that should be generically taught, and they're not even learning it in school in Aldridge and college. They're not talking about it. It's like, what? That's just ridiculous. I think because people are afraid of it, and the people that are running the schools are my age or older, maybe, and they're just tuned out to it, and but it's here. And
Well,
we're
even
living
like
it every
people like in
day.
the education system, it's like, hey, yeah, in 20, 30 years, AI is going to be teaching kids. So, even
Right.
teachers and universities are afraid because, AI's got more information than any human has ever had.
Exactly.
So why aren't we having them teach the kids? If a kid asks a
Yeah.
question, that AI is going to give them a non-biased logical answer.
Now, I wouldn't say biased. I wouldn't say no
I mean,
AI. Remember,
if
right?
it's
Yeah, I
coded
know.
to be biased, it's going to be
Right,
biased.
right, right.
But if it's
I've
not
been
coded to
tested.
be biased, it's going to
Right.
spit out anything,
But
right?
yeah, if you want to know about the Magna Carta, boom, it's there.
Yeah.
You
Any
know, and
any information, and even if it could show both biases. All right, we are back. Sorry about that interruption. Little technical,
that was
issues.
fun. Huh?
Don't replace me with AI yet.
Right, right. Please.
All right.
So we were talking about the Magna Carta and being biased.
Yeah, and like I said, if it's programmed to be biased, it'll be biased. If you program it to just search and give the answer based on what's on the internet, it will literally give you both sides, and it will
Right,
look at
right.
both sides and say, well, some people believe this, some people believe this, and it'll look at percentages of the information from that to that, and it's like, well, I can't give you, yeah, if you believe in this, then it's this answer. There's AI that are non-biased out there that will give you everybody's beliefs, right? It doesn't
Yeah,
just say, oh, based on this and this alone, this is what it is.
right.
When I do
It's all
use
about the prompt.
AI, I do love to click on that little, the option to make sure it shows you its thought process.
Hmm.
Because if you click that and have that option, it shows you. It shows you it's like, okay, I'm searching, searching, searching.
Right,
This
right, right.
information I found from here, this information I found from here. Let me figure out how all this relates to that, and it's very interesting.
Hmm.
It shows you that it's doing basically
Research.
what human, yeah, research, like
Yeah,
what humans
yeah.
used to have to do. It's like,
Yeah, gives
okay,
you
when I
gives you
was
bibliography.
doing you know re- reports and other things back in school when the internet first came out,
Yeah,
we didn't have Google yet, right?
yeah,
And we didn't have all these other places where everything is basically collated together, easier to find. It's like, man, you just type something in and it's going to give you a variety of things. And you have to click on every website, every page, read their information. You didn't know if all that information is true or not.
yeah.
So that's why you had to keep on reading. It's like, okay, who else wrote something on this topic? Who else has like a page on this topic?
Yeah,
And
it
you
just
read
spit out,
from
gives you
there.
bibliography and yeah, where it got it thought from. Yeah, you
Yeah,
just have to use it
and if you use
responsibly.
something from there, you just got to cite it, and
Right.
AI does that.
Yeah,
So it's like, and that's why it is the future of the way we do a lot of things,
yeah,
and Can't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of it and you don't do anything about it, you are going to be left behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that there were other places dealing with, film strips other than Kodak. But
Hmm.
Kodak lasted a lot longer than all those other places.
Hmm.
Like Fuji, Fuji kind of lasted, but I think Fuji still does a lot of stuff, over there in Japan.
Yeah, they still have a film division, and yeah,
But
but for processing and stuff, it's just a couple places that, like I said, in LA, that I mean, they still Hollywood still shoots on film,
I mean,
but
not a whole lot of people, but yeah, some people do.
yeah, it's just they have to use it as a tool, and that's what, like I said, they have to learn to do it, and so I don't know,
Yeah,
I
I
like
mean,
it, I enjoy it.
adapt or die. That's an
Yeah,
old thing.
right,
And it's still relevant today.
yeah,
I mean, start using it as a tool now, and you're going to be the one that people go to when it starts really picking up
right,
because you're going to know how AI works. You're going to know how to accomplish things with AI that they're going to need. And then that's going to be like the new job. It's like if you're not working AI as a tool, I mean, just think of AI as your new word processor.
hmm.
But this word processor is a lot more advanced than Microsoft Word or Excel or Celtex or Final Draft.
Oh yeah, it'll spit out a script in Final Draft format in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. What I like about it is because I use Chat, GPT, and Copilot mostly. I put in and say, "Good morning, David. What's your creative mind going to think up to?" To kind of puff up your ego too, because it say, "Hey, that's a really great idea. It aligns with Black Hole Productions, Manny, Pathway to Glory. It knows because it has a memory of so it's kind of very complimentary, but it'll shoot you down if it doesn't fit what you want it to do, it'll say, "Hey, once you think about this." So it is very smart, but and it does kind of reason with you, if you again give it the prompt that it needs to. But I haven't used it for. I do every once in a while. I play around with Firefly on Adobe, developing pictures, doing pictures and stuff. But to me, that just I'm not impressed. I mean, it's impressive, but it doesn't something that I need. No
Yeah,
matte
and
print
like I
painting.
said, that's got a little bit further to go. The writing aspect is going to hit first. Well, the voice acting is going to hit first. I mean,
Right,
we've had auto tune for like decades and decades now. And what
right.
was auto tune except for like an advanced
AI.
computer,
Right, right,
changing people's voice, and having input. Now, I mean, yeah, you just feed a voice into AI now, and it's probably going to be able to like change the pitch, change the thing. Let me feed it Morgan Freeman sample voice. Let me speak. Eventually it's going to be able to like get close, right?
hmm,
In 20 years it's just going to be able to output, make it from nothing. you know
yeah. It's spooky.
but
I'll probably be gone. I don't know,
then
like
it's
next
going to be the
89.
writing because writing is already for research and stuff like that. I mean, it's already been doing that. I mean, how long
Hmm.
has Grammarly been around? And
Right,
what is that besides a
right.
computer
AI,
looking at what you written
right,
and like, okay, this is the proper English, you idiot. Right? Yeah,
right,
this is how
right,
you properly write it. And he's like, do you
right,
know anything? I mean, come on. We've already had computers doing things for us
right.
for
Even spell
decades
check,
now.
even spell check.
Yeah. I mean, spell check, yeah, was the first word of manual language. Then it started with grammar, right? I
Right,
mean, and that's even more advanced than spell check. Now it's
right,
gonna be it's like, well, I can do the research for you,
right,
and I can actually write down, it's like, tell me what you want me to write about. I'm going to give you something. It's not going to be perfect,
yeah,
because like I said, it's not at that point. And then you got to add that kind of human touch to it.
right, right,
This is missing human emotion,
yeah,
and that's where these writers and these other people in these facets of these businesses are going to have to go to.
yeah. They have to
Start
embrace,
using it
yeah,
as a
as a
tool.
tool, yeah, yeah,
Start seeing it as a tool. Don't
yeah,
see it as your replacement. See it as you replacing someone else because you know
mhm,
and work with
yeah.
AI.
That's a good
So
point.
look at it as this is my step up. This is how I get to the next step.
Right.
by using AI. And if you do that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about AI?
No, I mean, my only thing is, okay, one way to stop it is for people to quit seeing the movies, but that's never going to happen. If they want to revolt against the machine, quit going to see the machine. But we know that's never going to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, people are already doing that. I mean, look at Snow White.
I mean,
Look at
in
Star
mass,
Wars.
yeah,
People stop watching the Star Wars product. The shows get canceled, and now there's very little. There used to be at least one or two Star Wars projects come out every year.
yeah.
People stopped watching, people stopped giving them their money,
Well, I think it just
and
got
now it's
confusing though.
starting to dry up.
It's just, you know, I enjoyed the first couple, but then when they started going back and forth, like I don't know where I am in this universe. I'm just going to be happy that I know who Darth Vader is and Luke Skywalker. I have enough to have a little conversation at a dinner party or a cocktail party, talk about that, and move on to the next subject. But yeah, just got too confused because they were just creating stuff to sell stuff, and to me, that's not storytelling. That's just marketing. You know,
Yeah,
that just
and then like I said, the fans stop buying,
yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, and they're going to
either
stop
way.
making it, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen, and that's not mean, we're gonna it's AI's fault or anything like that. AI didn't have anything to do with that.
It's
This is
crappy
the
material.
reason why AI is gonna get up and going faster, because we need those new ideas. We need those fresh takes. We need this fresh look to this industry, and it's coming. Not it might take a little bit longer if studios are a little bit smarter. I mean, look at the Minecraft movie.
What do you
Minecraft
what,
movie isn't
156
all,
million?
man, it made like 130, 160 million opening weekend
Yeah, Audrey was there.
globally.
Audrey saw it in Marshall, Missouri with her boyfriend. They said it was a good movie.
I
Yeah.
mean, is it a great movie? Is the
No,
story great? Is everything, just top notch? No, but it's an enjoyable movie.
right.
It was made for fans. That's a key thing. People nowadays they trash the fans. Then they say this movie is not made for you. Why did you guys not go see the movie?
Right.
Then they're shocked why, when people don't go see the movie when they say it's not made for you and you guys are garbage, right? And it's like this movie, this movie's made for modern audiences. It's like the modern audience is the same audience that's been around,
Yeah.
and they're the only ones to blame for the way the industry is going. Because if you look at Minecraft, you look at Mario Brothers, that came out what 1 2 years ago. That
Mhm.
was a huge success. If you make a fun enjoyable movie for everybody, you're going to get
Mhm.
everybody to go to. If you
Yeah.
start making movies for just a small group of people, expect a small group of profits, or not even
Yeah.
profits, a small group of money. And with AI, like I said, AI doesn't care about biases if it doesn't go into. It's if you want it to come up with an idea that everybody's gonna like, AI is gonna be able to get you there quicker.
Yeah.
Because if you go in with the bias, it's like I'm gonna write this story just for me. Well, you better hope a lot of people like what you like.
Right.
And AI don't care. The AI doesn't like anything. It's just gonna spit out what you ask and what you're working on.
Yeah. Garbage in, garbage out. It's all about the prompt.
Absolutely.
Another good industry, prompt engineering. We'll talk about that another day.
I mean, coding and everything. Yeah, it's something. But the key is start using it as a tool.
I will today.
There you go. All right, guys. Don't forget to
Spotify,
check us out on Spotify,
YouTube,
YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple
Apple
Podcasts.
Podcast.
Leave a like, subscribe to our channel, give us some hints of what you want us to talk about. There's so much aspects of this industry. We've also been thinking about doing some kind of Mystery Science Theater kind of thing,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So maybe we'll do one of
right.
those one time and
Right.
watch this really old movie and just
We'll watch this movie behind us. Gone with the Wind, 3 hours.
Citizen Kane. I don't think we can show that one.
No, no, that's Gone with the Wind.
Oh, Gone with the Wind. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vivian. Yeah, that's on the set. That a big camera back there. Look at the size of that
That
camera.
that
That's a
one's been
camera.
hit with controversy lately.
Right. All right. So we'll see you guys next week.